Okay, who's ready for part 3 of my house tour, the kitchen? I first removed all of the trim from the upper cabinets and cut some plywood down to make boxes to go on top to take the cabinets to the ceiling. This part was pretty straightforward. Then I added some 1x2s to create a face frame to mimic the bottom cabinets. I needed help from my daughter for this part because these pieces were so long. Then we put up this wider piece of wood, but it turns out it was warped, so we ended up taking it down and I replaced it with a baseboard that I added upside down. And then it was time to choose a paint color, which was really hard. I knew I wanted an earthy green. I filled in all the seams with wood filler and then sanded everything with my orbital sander with a really quick swipe just to rough up the surface. Then I used some liquid sandpaper and some cleaner to clean everything off so that I could get everything primed. This isn't hard, it's just tedious. This video is black and white because I was keeping the color a secret for the time being. I brushed and rolled on the cabinet boxes and I bought a paint sprayer for the doors. I didn't want to buy new hardware just yet, so I rub and buffed the knobs and the pulls, but I didn't seal it with any kind of poly or anything, so it started to rub off. We left those old knobs on for a few years and I just recently replaced them with these gorgeous ones that I found on Etsy that I'm kind of obsessed with. I highly recommend, they're very nice quality. We had this bar top, but I hated it that high, so I wanted to knock it down to countertop level. A friend of mine did this, and it really opened up the space. There were some strip screws we had to get off with the grinder, and then we also had to move the water line down a little bit because it was right at countertop level. Then we added that original piece back on, and I ended up filling it all in with wood filler. And then, for the most controversial part, I painted the countertops. Don't worry, they're not granite. People really get their panties in a wad when they think that I painted granite. So I got everything painted white and then I went over it with gray to make it look like marble. Once it was all dry, we added epoxy. This was a huge pain. Honestly, I really hate working with epoxy. As you can see, it looks really great here, but it has yellowed over time. This is not a forever solution, but it can buy you a few years until you can save up for new countertops. And we got a new sink. I love this workstation sink. And you might be thinking we're crazy for putting a hole in our brand new painted countertops, but guess what we're going to put in? It's a pop-up outlet. This thing is super cool. It can go flat and pop up. It has some USB chargers and then the regular plugins, and you can also set your phone on top and it'll wirelessly charge it. I first painted the upper cabinets, then painted the countertops, and then did the lowers. Bare cabinet and trim enamel is my go-to. And here's the plans for the other side of the kitchen where the fridge is. I planned on keeping the lower cabinets, but I wanted to completely redo the top. So I started by cutting plywood down to make a surrounding cabinet for the fridge and taking it all the way up to the ceiling. I took that right cabinet down and then built my own right here. This is a mix of 3/4 inch plywood and MDF I had laying around. Right here you can see that I wood filled where the two pieces met. I sanded that down and then I got to work priming. This is the primer that goes with the bare cabinet and trim enamel. Then I added the face frame, which really made this start coming together. The color I chose was Peter Green by Sherwin-Williams. I added some blocks up top to have something to attach those baseboards to, and then I added base cap molding, which really made it look nice and finished. I decided to try my hand at making my own doors. I put them together with pocket holes, and of course I had to test fit them before I painted them. I decided to add burlap to the back, and this is what it looked like, but I wasn't completely satisfied with it. So about a year later, I made some new doors using paint stir sticks. Can you believe that? This is what it looks like before I sawed those off. These are going to be the middle of the doors. I just attached them to a piece of brown board with wood glue, and then I stained them in early American. Look how gorgeous they are. This is my hidden coffee area with pocket doors. The next up is the backsplash. I started by removing the original backsplash, and I had to remove all of the drywall behind it because it was so damaged. And kitchen renovations are chaos. This is how we cooked our dinner. So instead of replacing the drywall with more drywall, I added hardy board because the stone's pretty heavy. The stones came on these sheets that I had to cut off for part of it. And adding a stone backsplash is also a very controversial topic. Apparently people are having food fights in their kitchen and they're worried about keeping it clean. And for all you masons out there that like to tell me I overgrouted, this is the look I was going for and I did it on purpose. The outlets were the hardest part. Then I saw something on Instagram that really got me inspired. This was just a weekend project. I started by adding beadboard to this blank wall I had. Then I framed it out with 1x2s that I attached with pocket holes around the seams because that's where the shelves were going to go, so they were going to be hidden. I finished the top off with trim and then I added some quarter rounds to the edges to finish that part off. Then I added some new baseboards that I've been installing throughout my house. I got everything wood-filled and caulked. Trust me, caulk fixes everything. And then I started painting it Alabaster by Sherwin-Williams, and the trim is Accessible Beige by Sherwin-Williams. Look how this turned out. The plans for this are in my Etsy shop. I've slowly been replacing all of the door trim in my house to give it a more craftsman style look as well. Here's where I'm filling in the door hinge areas from where we took the door off of our laundry room. Then I did the same thing with the pantry door right here. The sides are 1x3s and the tops are 1x2s and 1x4s. It's all primed pine that I like using. And of course, more caulk before I got everything painted. And look how smooth this casing turned out. I'm so proud of it. All the doors in my house are now Accessible Beige by Sherwin-Williams. And then I decided to build my own island. I had big plans for this. I mean, have you ever seen an expandable countertop before? I added all the trim, and then people were freaking out that the trash can was going to be in there, so I added a divider to it. I made space in the back of the drawer for the trash bags to sit inside. I made the expandable countertop look like it disappears when it slides back in. I even wallpapered the inside of the expandable part. And this is how it turned out. I'm really proud of this one. You got the trash can drawer. I even put a hidden drawer in there because it was fun, as well as a spice drawer, and of course the expandable countertop. The plans for this one are available in my Etsy shop. I am going to eventually redo the drawer fronts. And as a reminder, this is what it looked like before and after. And here's the fridge side again. I'm still surprised the paint sticks turned out so good. And I know a lot of y'all are going to say, oh, your kitchen was perfectly fine the way it was before. And sure, but it wasn't my style, and it also looked like every other D.R. Horton house in my neighborhood, and I like something a little more unique.